right. Hello, my name is Hannah, and today I'm gonna tell you about all the books I read in May. Before I really start, I just want to say thank you. There were so many really sweet, really welcoming comments on my newbie tag video that I did last week. And that was so unexpected and really nice, and everyone's just being really nice. So, yeah, thank you for that. That's been really fun to read those throughout the week as new comments have been coming in, and a handful of you have also subscribed, which is very cool. And the usual disclaimers: I have no idea what kind of mouth smacking noise my dog is making, and also my roommate is playing synthesizer in the other room, so we get some ambient sound here. Also, I'm filming at rush hour, so there's just like non-stop vehicles going by, so everyone just be cool about that. So May was a really weird reading month for me. I read 6 books total, which is kind of par for the course for me, but 3 of them were arcs, which is still really unusual for me. Like I said last month, I signed up for NetGalley and just requested a bunch of stuff, and I got approved for a bunch of stuff that I was not expecting, so I'm kind of playing catch up on that. So hopefully going forward after this month, it'll be maybe like 1 arc a month, maybe 2, but not literally half of my reading. So let's just start at the beginning. So the first book I read in May was The Road by Cormac McCarthy. I listened to the audiobook on Libby. It's about a man and his son after the fall of civilization walking down a road. The Road. This book, I picked it up because I've been wanting to read it for years. I'm vaguely aware of the movie starring Viggo Mortensen, which I still haven't watched, which is unlike me. I remember a little fun fact about me: for a not insignificant amount of time in high school, I was the only member of my high school's book club, so it would just be me and my English teacher sitting after school, drinking coffee and talking about books. And I actually asked, I remember asking in high school if we could read The Road for book club, and she told me no, because I would hate it. If I had read this when I was 16, I probably would have hated it. That's probably really fair. She said I would have found it really boring, so reading it now, I was kind of like astonished that anything happened at all. Yeah, I loved it. I liked that the prose was really straightforward without being like basic. And I loved the love that the man had for his son, and I liked that it kind of presented like that reality that, you know, sometimes strength and survival isn't going to be glorious or heroic or action-packed. Sometimes it is just a matter of like grit and keeping your head down and like literally continuing on the road. As is usually the case when I read books that are considered classics, I don't have much to say that is new or substantive, so yeah, loved that. I am recording, right? Okay, thank Christ. The next book I read was an arc for The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. Yeah, I remember when The Silent Patient came out, I never picked it up because I just heard such mixed things about it, and the description of the book wasn't enough on its own to grab me. The Maidens sounded a lot more up my alley. So basically there's a charismatic classics professor at Cambridge who has this like fleet of young, beautiful, brilliant, privileged young women who are like his students and devotees, basically. They call themselves the Maidens. All sounds really good so far. Then one of the titular maidens dies, so naturally the girl's friend's aunt comes to Cambridge. She is neither law enforcement nor did she really know this girl, but she decides that she is going to investigate this death. In case it's not super obvious, I did not care for this one. I just thought that it was ridiculous and it was so silly. You know, all of the other characters, which is to say suspects in a whodunit, are so like cartoonishly villainous seeming and suspicious. It was like, it literally felt like Scooby-Doo a couple times. Yeah, that setup beyond like the Maiden group and the Professor Fosca, beyond that, it's really ridiculous. She's like a private practicing group therapist who somehow keeps getting access to this investigation and basically conducting the investigation herself. And the main character, she's like our point of view character, and she is so frustrating to try to read through her eyes. Her focus is so fixed and unmoving, regardless of any new information we as the reader get or she gets in the actual narrative. Her opinion doesn't change and her focus doesn't shift at all. So it's like, why is the plot even happening? It's like you just kind of feel like you're on a treadmill. So for something that's supposed to be thrilling, it just felt glacially slow. And I'm not spoiling the ending, but I just want to say I thought the ending was really dumb and it made me mad that I read the book. So thank you to NetGalley for the arc. It comes out June 15th if you want to read it and form your own opinion. There are so many 4- and 5-star reviews for this book on Goodreads, so there's something here for someone, evidently, but I did not think this was very good. The next book that I read was One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, and this was an audio arc that I got through NetGalley. That's my first audio arc that I've ever had, and I really loved the experience. I like the audiobook interface on the NetGalley Shelf app a lot. So I, along with everyone on Earth, it seems, in 2019, I read and really enjoyed Red, White, and Royal Blue, and I thought it was very fun and very cute. So when she announced her next book, it was obviously I'm going to try to read it. So this one, it's another romance, and it follows a young woman named August who has just moved to New York, and she moves into this apartment that's full of characters. And she meets a girl on the train named Jane, who she kind of instantly falls for. But we learn that Jane has kind of fallen out of time. She's from the 1970s, and she's like always in the Q train in the New York subway, which is a unique challenge for a couple. I enjoyed this. I thought this was really cute. I loved the characters. It feels almost condescending to call them like a colorful cast of characters, but they really are. There's this excellent found family dynamic in August's apartment and in her workplace and all of the friends that she makes. So that element on its own is really, really fun to read. It's really nice to read, just to kind of like drop in on a group of really close-knit friends who are all hanging out. You can also really tell that Casey McQuiston is getting stronger as a writer. Like the actual quality of her writing is improving even over Red, White, and Royal Blue. While Red, White, and Royal Blue was much more of like a straightforward rom-com in its setup, there is that kind of like light sci-fi or fantastical element to this that was really, really fun. I'm not usually a straight-up romance reader. I read maybe 1 or 2 like books that are marketed as romance novels a year. I read a lot of like literary romance, whatever that means. But so there were some things here that were still a little tropey for me. There's a little bit of insta love, like August is immediately obsessed with Jane. There's some conflicts or setups I think are resolved really easily. Sometimes the prose still reads kind of YA-y, which isn't a bad thing, but it's just, it's not something that I usually am used to reading in romance. But yeah, it was really fun. The narration of the audiobook was really good. The narrator, I'm forgetting her name. Yeah, she was pitch perfect. I think the best audiobook narrators are the ones that don't feel like an obstacle to reading, and she was great. So yeah, this was fun. I'm officially like a Casey McQuiston reader now. I'll read probably anything she publishes. But yeah, this was fun. It was a fun book. And that came out actually today. I'm filming on June 1st. So that's out and in the world. The next book I read was King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. I read it physically. It's the only physical book I read this month. So my planned Grishaverse read-through is still going. I kind of planned on being done with Rule of Wolves by now. I planned on being done with all of this a while ago. However, this book took me 3 weeks to read. This took me forever because I didn't love it. It was just a very frustrating read. There are just too many completely disparate plot threads. So, I mean, it's a big book. I mean, like, it's YA, but it's big, and it felt like a very long book. So even though it is really long, there were just so many threads that didn't really connect with each other that it still felt like I didn't get enough time with any one plot. So none of them really quite hit for me. Nina felt way separate from the rest of the plot, and I can tell where it's going with the Fjerdans starting a war on Ravka. Hi, honey. But since this book was like so not engaging that I would put it down after a few minutes at a time. So it's like I felt like I would literally go days on end without hearing from Nina. At the palace, I liked Isaac's plot. I just didn't really care about his point of view. Like, it's good that we saw what was going on at the palace, but I probably would have rather heard it from Jenya or more likely the twins. I think that just would have been a lot more compelling than Isaac. And I liked his romantic subplot, but I don't think that it was important enough or like hard-hitting enough or interesting enough that we needed to like be in it. And then Zoya and Nikolai going into the Unsea and meeting the saints. It was just like so little happened before the last like 100 pages. So it almost felt like it was barely worth including their plotline because so little changed from beginning to end. Even in their relationship. Now, I'm kind of ragging on this book. I did like it. I just didn't love it. So I will now tell you the things I liked about this book. I think it's really fun that we got to learn more about the small science. Maybe almost too much. Like, it felt like we were getting kind of in the weeds when we didn't need to, but it's, you know, it adds flavor to the whole series. Also, learning why they're called Grisha is so funny. Everyone making fun online because Grisha, the actual word, is kind of the Russian equivalent of the name Greg. So they're named for Saint Gregory, which I just think is really funny. It almost feels like kind of walking something back on Leigh Bardugo's part, but I just thought that was really funny. And I liked getting more flavor of Ravka versus Fjerda and versus the Shuhan, but especially those two. I think that's part of why I found Nina and Matthias so interesting in the Six of Crows books. The interplay between those two countries and the conflict between the two of them, it's really interesting, and it provides a good like jumping off point for even interpersonal conflict, which is kind of what we got with Nina and Matthias. It's what we're getting with Nina now. And generally, I did really like Nina's story. I thought hers was by far the most interesting, but it was just so spread out and so sparse that it kind of was difficult. But yeah, the ending makes me really excited to see where Rule of Wolves is going. I am like 80-ish pages into Rule of Wolves, and already I can tell that there's just more happening than happened in King of Scars. So that's kind of a bummer that I didn't love that. Kind of felt like a chore, but it's still Grishaverse, and it's still, you know, it's Nikolai, it's Nina, it's Zoya, it's all these characters we love, so it's fine. All right, I have 2 more. All right. Oh God. The 5th book that I read and the 3rd arc that I read this month was Nightbitch by Rachel Yoder, which comes out July 20th? Yes. So I picked this up for several reasons. Rachel Yoder has an MFA from Iowa. I love reading people who went and got their MFAs at Iowa. I just think that's really cool. She still lives in Iowa City, and you can tell there's some some peppering in of unnamed Midwestern college town in this book, and I love that. I eat that up. But I first heard of this book like almost a year ago when Annapurna bought the film rights almost a full year before publication, and Amy Adams is currently attached to it, so it's like all these elements. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna read this book. So Nightbitch tells the story of an unfulfilled woman who is an artist turned stay-at-home mom who believes that she is turning into a dog named Nightbitch. So yeah, probably the main thing that people are going to be saying about this book is that it's bizarre, which it is, but it's also very, very smart. I feel like a lot of times when a book is kind of marketed as being weird, that's to kind of obfuscate the fact that it doesn't really have a point, or it's not a very well thought out point. But this book has a point and is not shy about telling you what that point is. So yeah, this book has so much to say about motherhood, the division of labor in a household, the value of art and artists, just general like societal expectations of women, essential oil MLMs. So yeah, there's depth here. There's a lot going on beneath the surface with a really simple pitch, like a woman thinks she's turning into a dog. And there's a part that I loved. I know it's kind of verboten to share quotes from an arc, but there was nothing specific on this arc that said don't share quotes. And like, if the film rights were sold a year ago, it's probably pretty done. So I'm just gonna read you a quote that I think really like, it's so good. It really like sums up the point of the book, to me at least. How many generations of women had delayed their greatness only to have time extinguish it completely? How many women had run out of time while the men didn't know what to do with theirs? And what a mean trick to call such things holy or selfless. How evil to praise women for giving up each and every dream. That's so good. So yeah, this was great, and again, that comes out July 20th. The last book that I read in May was Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. And I listened to the audiobook on Libby, I believe? Yes. Kindred is about a Black woman named Dana in the 1970s when the book was published, who keeps getting thrown back in time to the antebellum South, thrown back in time and space into the antebellum South. She's trying to figure out why it's happening, how she can stop it from happening, all while trying to survive as a Black woman during slavery. I loved it. I thought this book was completely brilliant. And it's really like fast-paced and very immersive, because even though it has this like kind of sci-fi or fantastical element, the danger and the conflict is very real. It's in individual people. It's in these entire structures that she like physically can't escape. So that part is like, that's very, very compelling. Dana is a great protagonist. She's very smart. She's very pragmatic without being like boring and really stiff. And for that matter, I think Rufus is also a really interesting character. I think it's fascinating how Dana, you know, kind of resists writing him off for such a long time, even though she is so keenly aware the whole time of how dangerous he can become. So she's not like apologizing for or justifying his actions, but she's remaining hopeful while still being very realistic about her station when she's in the South and the danger that she is in. And again, like most classics, anything intelligent I'd be able to say has already been said more eloquently by other people. I loved this. I think this cover is bunk, because I'm like, is that supposed to be Dana, like demurely looking down? That doesn't sound like my friend Dana. So yeah, overall kind of an odd reading month. I had a really weird middle and a really strong beginning and end. So yeah, going forward, gonna dial it back on the arcs a little, but yeah, my feedback ratio was like abysmal. It was literally like 21% or something. It's like, well, now I'm never gonna get approved for anything, even if I want to. So yeah, next month I'll have another reading wrap up with What am I even reading right now? Some Margaret Atwood, probably Rule of Wolves. If it's a month from now and I'm still reading Rule of Wolves, I want someone to yell at me. Thank you. I have some other videos planned for between now and then, but yes. So thank you for watching, and thank you again. Everyone was so nice on my newbie tag video. That was so unexpected and such a delight. So thank you, and have a nice day. Thank you.